Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me, once again in the studio, our friend Omagbitse Barrow. Omagbitse Barrow. We are related to the president of
of Gambia.
Of Gambia.
we share the same surname.
Yeah. Omagbitse Barrow is a former investment banker, leadership coach. Had a stint in politics, and is one of our supporters and partners in Terra. And we have been discussing the issue of Nigeria, how to make Nigeria better. Today, Bishe is in the studio for us to discuss COVID-19 matters arising. What lessons have we learned from COVID-19? This has been our experience in the last 8 months. Have we learned anything? What challenges has COVID-19 thrown to us? And how are we learning? I mean, they say, don't let any serious crisis go to waste.
That's correct.
COVID-19 was a very serious crisis. Not long ago, we lost Jerry Rawlings. And we have lost some big people in this country too. God has saved us of the worst that was speculated will happen in Africa.
Yes.
However, there's been quite some dislocation in our lives. Things have not been the same, and things may not be the same again in some areas. What have we learned? How are we being challenged? How are Nigerians taking those challenges, if at all? And what are the prospects of life going forward over the COVID-19?
It's quite a huge question, and there's so many dimensions to it. If you look at different sectors of society, everybody was impacted in different ways. Schools were shut down, so family life was disrupted. Businesses were shut down. It means that people lost their jobs and their sources of income. Businesses had to do things in different ways. One of the biggest takeaways from me is the fact that everything that we thought was so important, everything we thought we had to do in a particular way and could not have been done in any other way, we soon learned that we could do
that
things.
Either we could let it go and not do it.
Exactly.
And,
or we could and lose it.
And nothing will happen.
And nothing will happen. Nobody's going to die, apparently.
We could do it in another way.
We could do it in another way. You know, so all of that heavy traveling, business meetings, business travel, all of those things we found out even in hospitals. I mean, one of the things that I found very interesting was I found that in the early stage, what happened? Nobody was going to a hospital. So it sounds like people just go to hospital sometimes for very, how do we call it?
Flimsy
reasons. Everybody is just going to, oh, I have a little headache. So all of a sudden, hospitals were empty, and still people were okay, at least here in Nigeria.
Yes.
You know, so it shows you that there's a lot of things that we otherwise thought were important and so on. And COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown showed us the world could be different. But in addition to that, there was pain. There was pain for people. Think about our economy. Think about people who are at the fringes of society. Think about people, for example, drivers, whose jobs were
to ferry people
up and down, to ferry their bosses up and down, and their bosses aren't going anywhere. So plenty of people lost their jobs or were put in a temporary state of unemployment. People's salaries couldn't be paid. Schools were closed. The government's response, for example, to schools being closed is, let's stay at home and let's listen to the radio. Whereas
palliative.
Whereas teachers were not being paid
for 7 months.
For 7 months, you know, their colleagues in government schools were getting salaries. These private schools were even ready to actually do schooling properly online, quite a number of them. And the government says, no, you shouldn't start formal school. You can just be doing lessons online because we don't want to disrupt the school calendar. You know, yet international schools, as they are called, as we now learned, we're running and we're free to run their international curriculum and syllabus in line with what was going on in the UK.
What was the reason for government saying don't run schools so as not to disrupt our program? Is it that the government does not want to be challenged because government schools are not able to do online studies?
That sounds like it. I can't think of anything else. Because government schools are not prepared and equipped, or they didn't even think that they could challenge themselves to be equipped for this. And this is one of the things that we must learn the lesson. So let's imagine, God forbid, but look at what's going on in Europe and America, that there's a second wave
And we have to sit down for 1
and
year.
we have to sit down for 1 year. Does this mean that government schools and the larger population of children in Nigeria will not go to school? I remember talking about this and saying to people at every opportunity I had that, look, if you even begged Bill Gates Foundation and said you wanted those $40 laptops and you wanted 10 million of them, I'm sure they will have cut you a nice discount as the federal government of Nigeria to procure those things. And many times this was the feedback I got, unfortunately, even from very educated people who I think should have known better. They said to me, but Bishe, people have not eaten yet.
Is it
laptop and education you are talking about? You know, so this whole thing, again, mindset, our priorities, we're always talking about stomach infrastructure. It's important, but beyond that, there is much more.
If you don't invest in knowledge cultivation.
Exactly.
Because I keep saying, the people who are going to save us from poverty, the people who are going to save us from the present system, rotten system, inefficient system that is making us knock our head together and fight, they may be these young people whom we are neglecting to educate.
Exactly.
God has put into their heads the solution to the problems of this country.
Exactly. And without the right quality of education, we will all keep saying it will be better in the next generation. It will be better in the next generation.
Without educating the
next generation, it's almost like it's wishful thinking. You know, so we've got to, and that's a big area. Father, for example, in the area of, so back to this conversation about technology, because it's one of those big lessons. Imagine if Nigeria made a massive investment, for example, in communication satellites to bolster internet connectivity everywhere in the country. Can you imagine the ripple effect it will have for education, for innovation, for enterprise?
By the way, I hope you know that Nigeria has Niger Domsat.
Yes.
That is wasting away.
Yeah.
We have launched satellites.
Yes.
And yet we depend on Israeli and US companies to provide our communication things. Yet we have launched satellites, wasting away, and we're spending millions, maybe billions to maintain them.
Yeah, you know.
What are we doing to ourselves?
So these are some of the lessons that the quality of governance, the quality of thinking in the government apparatus needs to really wake up, because we are still analog in the way we are thinking about what our priorities should be.
Our priorities are often the next election. How do we win the next election?
Or big physical infrastructure
that we will go and
cut the tape, you know, and then the impoverished people will clap for you and say you are doing well, as if to say that is so significant.
I have said to people that, look, we need to begin to reflect on what dividends of democracy, the real dividends of democracy are, that they are not tangible things.
Exactly.
The real dividends of democracy should be the intangible values that bring people together.
Yeah, yeah.
The value of justice.
Yes.
If every Nigerian growing up knows that in this democratic environment, I have equal access to justice, that's a dividend of democracy.
Exactly. But these are the things that, unfortunately, because the very, and I put in quote, educated and exposed people in Nigeria are not very actively involved in political discussions. These are the things that otherwise should be the priority. But if you leave electioneering and politics and governance to the decisions that the people at the fringes of society have to make, then don't be surprised that the people in government will pander to those things of physical infrastructure and stomach infrastructure.
But you know,
they are not being challenged.
You know, it's like a chicken and egg situation, because the people at the fringe of society, they are 90% of the people. And the elite you are talking about, because you have been very consistent in challenging the educated people to register and vote and so on, very well and good. But if for decades we have neglected these people on the fringes, the vulcanizers, the Okada riders, the Keke Napep riders, and so on, you need to see them on election day. When I went for the last election, they were the kind of people that I saw 95% of those who came to vote. They are the ones who decide who run our affairs. And what they are looking for is stomach infrastructure.
That is why the people who then go into government supply the stomach infrastructure. They don't even supply it well, though. But the little they supply, they believe that they've done a great job. And we have the responsibility to sort of reset that and say, no, that is not a great job. Like you said, that the fact that we have a just society, we have an equitable society, we have a society that is a meritocracy.
We have a society where there are equal opportunities for children, for example.
Including the children of the impoverished, especially them. It is pushing for that you will now say you have done well. You know, at the end of the day, it comes back to this thing. And Father, it's not just a Nigerian problem. Think globally about populist presidents talking about the fact that, for example, let us focus on prosperity. Let's measure our wealth by how big the stock exchange is, and so on and so forth. Is that really what the priority is? Is that the real gauge of how prosperous or successful a government or a society is? Certainly not.
Definitely not.
So those are some of the issues. COVID has also taught us about resilience. Think about our businesses and our organizations on a more micro level. So we've gone from macro government, micro level. How resilient is our organizations? How resilient is the church? How resilient is Terra? How resilient is my organization, our schools?
To be able to survive a lockdown of 7 months.
Exactly. So this is another very important thing, and resilience comes from capacity, from your enterprise and from your risk management. How well can we look into the future and say, what are the potential risks that portend for us, and can we hedge against those risks? So one of the things that organizations and strategists are talking about now more than ever is risk management and resilience, and building resilience and building the organization to be able to cope with disaster. Like the way the Americans have described it, that COVID-19 they're at war.
Yes.
So we are in a war situation.
So you prepare.
You prepare
to fight the enemy,
which is COVID. And this enemy, according to the scientists, it looks like the enemy is not going away soon. Different versions of the enemy will come, and we've got to build that resilience. So those will be some of other important lessons we can take away.
Now, with regards to, you have talked about technology and education and business and so on and so forth. Do you have something about lessons and so on with regards to society, family life, for example, and the individual response and to the challenges and the family and so on and so forth? You have already also mentioned organizational resilience. What about family and individual?
Yeah, very important. And if you think about the individual, for example, dealing with crisis and the trauma and the depression and the fear that many people face during the crisis, I think is very, very, very important. Mental health and the ability of individuals to cope with difficult situations, I think, was something that is very important. I know I belong to so many groups where people were offering counseling services to people who were distressed, people who were afraid, people who had lost their jobs, people who had lost their businesses. I know some organizations were even providing those services as part of their human resources programs to support their employees. Employees who were dealing with, for example, I have employees and colleagues who are who are working from home, but in their homes, their children, meaning that they're in their early 20s, they are living with their parents. They're telling their parents that they are going for meetings online, on Zoom. And the parents are saying, what's going on? Go into the kitchen and go and cook. And on the other side, their boss is making demands of them. And there's that tension, and that human being needs to cope with that and be able to explain to the parents that, look, I am still at work. This is work. And this is work.
I mean, talking about what you are saying and the conflicts that come, I have discovered that I am becoming more busy than before the lockdown.
Exactly. We are having meetings till 10 p.m.
I'm getting invitations for meetings 4 or 5 in the day.
Exactly.
And I'm asking myself, hey, wait a minute. This technology is getting me too busy.
Yeah. The lines are blurred now. So the difference between work time and home time and being at home is all finished
and
now.
that is not actually very good.
That's not very good.
That's not very good.
For the individual.
For work-life balance. That is not very good.
Exactly.
I mean, you are on Zoom meetings sometimes.
Yeah.
You see somebody taking his lunch.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's taking his lunch.
Yeah.
Those who are not careful about how to put off the camera and so on.
Exactly.
He's taking his lunch.
Yeah. I mean, I've been invited even for a formal pitch with an organization at 10 p.m. And all their directors called in from different places. And I'm wondering, in the real world, in the old normal, this would never have happened.
This never have happened.
So that impact on the individual and plenty of things, and on the family, of course, like you said, family life in a way enriched, because now people stayed together. People got to know themselves better. So those things that your children and your spouse and other people around you would do and you wouldn't notice, now we will get to learn about each other more. So I thought there was more bonding. There was more...
Not even worse.
Yes.
Still more.
Yes.
Because up till now, the level of clubbing has not gone back to the way it used to be. So a lot of people who used to close from work at 3:30 and go to the club, go to the whatever, and return home at 8 p.m.
Exactly.
Some of those people have been at home all this while.
And it's difficult for them. It's a major shift.
It's a shift in lifestyle for them.
Yes.
To the benefit of their children, by the way.
Exactly.
And perhaps madam.
Yes. But also sometimes, and I've seen this on TV and on radio and in the press, about how people have also increased negatively in terms of violence at home. So
I hear that, and it is a bit difficult for me to understand. You know what it means is that there was the potential already.
So that drinking or that hanging out was an escape, and now that escape is taken away, that battering spouse, is back into the house, and his punching bags or her punching bags are now available.
So that creates an environment where we need there's a lot of work for counselors, clinical psychologists, counselors,
and social welfare
and social
office.
workers,
and social workers,
to accompany people whose family life is a bit dysfunctional.
Exactly.
Because the truth is that many families are slightly dysfunctional.
Yes.
And need to be accompanied. I have spoken, as you hear me say in church, I have spoken about the need for adopting children, for fostering children. There is also a need to adopt families and foster families.
Yes.
Because many families are on
shaky ground,
on the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
And we definitely need to have people that we can proudly say, okay, Pishi and Kemi, there are these two families in the slum I am supporting. It doesn't even have to be poor families.
Exactly.
It can be middle class family, but you are fostering them. I mean, a case came to me last week of a couple that are always fighting, and I have intervened. So I then decided that no, what I'm going to do for these people is to give them an experienced couple to accompany them. This is not a one-off matter. This is something that they need accompaniment. Which in our church, which is what sponsorship used to be about.
Marriage sponsor.
So in terms of society, you are saying family life, there has been more bonding, but also there has been some tension.
Exactly.
Looking forward, what are the dimensions of this COVID-19 that have come and is with us, and we may never return to business as usual? People have been praying, when is this thing going to go away so that we turn to life as normal? Aren't there dimensions that normal is a new normal?
Yeah, I think that it depends, for different people. Even now, as we are transitioning away from the
hardcore
lockdown, some people have thrown a lot of the caution to the wind already. So some people are ready to just move on to life as normal, as it were.
But that normality is not there.
That normality won't always. I think that, for example, organizations who I consult with and do business with, I think that lots of organizations are seeing the benefit of less physical and more virtual. So definitely, I believe that there will be more, that virtual conversations and virtual meetings and virtual activities, that culture, I think, would stay for a very long time, especially in the corporate world. I think that even forward-thinking governments should be more interested in more engaging communication. I think that that's an area that if you were in government, that's what you should be thinking about, how to constantly keep people apprised of what is going on.
There's a failure we are experiencing in this society.
Yes.
On the one hand, we hear a lot of government people complaining about fake news. But the truth is that if government is not forthcoming with information,
that's it,
with clarification and so on and so forth, then you create an environment for fake news.
I mean, In change management, we say it all the time, and in communication theory, that you can't create a vacuum.
There's no vacuum.
So you have to be proactive. You have to, in fact, be the rumor mill itself. You should foster. So what is the narrative that you want? That is the correct thing. That is the positive thing. You've got to propagate it.
Push that out there.
If not, somebody else is going to take their own side of the story, the limited side or the single view side, and they are going to push it. Then you would come back and say that, yes, it is fake news. I agree with you, Father.
So rather than sit down and complain about fake news,
yes,
agencies of government should be very proactive in putting out information out there consistently, regularly.
And it's not about blowing their trumpet at all. It's just about being consistent about what the facts are about every issue. When you take a decision as government, you should tell us why. You know, if you deal with the why, then it's easy for people to understand the what and the how that is taking place. But
so right now that we have citizen journalism, meaning every child, even a primary school child with an iPhone, can begin to broadcast and send out information. Under that circumstance, and as technology gets more sophisticated, there is a limit to which you can actually scuttle that or muzzle that. Because, I mean, China has some policies of controlling this thing, but people are still managing to broadcast.
Exactly.
So the satellite does not recognize national boundaries.
That's it.
The satellites in the space, they don't recognize national boundaries. So you scuttle something here, you do something to reduce what MTN or Glo or whatever can do. Then I can be hooked onto something.
Exactly. And it brings up another conversation about something that's not going to change. I think increasing globalization or global opportunities, meaning that you are in Nigeria, like you said, there are no boundaries any longer. So for anybody who is very, very forward thinking, who is very enterprising, it gives you an opportunity to do work in any country in the world where your skills are required. And many people took advantage of this.
During the NSAS protest.
Yes.
I have somebody here, one of our members of Luxera, who said, my daughter was in Canada and she was campaigning for funding for the person cooking. So you had somebody cooking in Lagos and the person paying her is in Canada.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had somebody in Australia who was paying somebody who is doing cleaning.
Exactly. Yeah. So borderless. So the borderless society is really is never going to go away.
And that is where what we discussed earlier about investment.
Yes.
That is where our youths
should be focused.
Should be the champions of a better Nigeria.
Yeah.
That we all should recognize the potential of our youth, because as they say, many of us are BBC, born before the technology, you know. So many of us are not citizens. We are immigrants in the IT world.
In the IT world, yes.
But these young people who never knew analog phones,
exactly.
These rotary phones, they didn't know. No, it existed. In fact, there are programs, there are videos that a young man, a young girl, a teenager, you put a rotary phone before the person and you say, can you call something? And you say, call, how?
What is it?
Where are the buttons?
Buttons, yeah.
They say, no, you dial. They say, what is dial? So they are IT citizens.
Exactly.
It's their homeland. Yeah. We need to harvest what these people have and know. We need to harvest it. We need to nurture their skills, their talents, and get the best of them to create this borderless world.
And let Nigeria benefit from it. Remember in the 1990s, there was this whole wave of outsourcing. India took advantage of outsourcing. Even in Africa, Egypt became the outsourcing call center for the rest of the world, you know. So where was Nigeria? So again, another opportunity has come. Where is Nigeria? You know, and very important, you talked about harnessing the creativity of our youth in a positive direction, because of course there is the negative side.
No, if you do not harness it in a positive direction, they will go into crime.
They will go into crime, you know. And I think again, it's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of governance to say what should be our priorities? What is the most important thing to move the needle of change in our society? Certainly, it is not building office complexes and markets and cutting tips. Those things are business as usual. In strategy, we say we make the distinction between what is business as usual and what is truly strategic. What is truly strategic is looking into the future
and build minds
and building people's minds to be able to cope with that future, even without knowing exactly what that future will be, because it's our best guess. 5 years from now, our mobile phones could probably look like something that we use in the air, and we are punching the air, and before you know it, you've made a phone call. Who knows? But we've got to build the capacity of people to cope with that. You know, exposure and enlightenment is so important. I lamented recently, and many people, because I thought deeply about this, that, Father, we've got a national television network that does not show anything but local programming. Now, I understand the rationale behind it was to bolster local movies and local productions and content. But the poorest people in Nigeria have no access to the rest of the world. I don't know if people have considered it. That if the only thing you watch on Nigerian television is local, then where is the window to the world? How do people at the fringes of society get to see
what is possible for them?
Because that is part of what drives imagination and creativity.
It is to see what is possible.
And they can't afford cable TV. They can't afford to go to movie theaters. They can't afford internet. So how do you challenge them? How do you challenge them? How do they see that there's something better than what they are used to? These are the priorities.
COVID-19 has come with a lot of dislocation, challenges for individuals and organizations, but also opportunities and lessons that we have been discussing. I have been speaking with Omagbitse, Barrow, investment banker, leadership coach, who has been looking at a lot of the benefits that COVID-19 has brought and the challenges for our society. This may not go away soon. Some dimensions remain with us. There is a new normal. We have to go virtual in many things, and it will be with us, and it has a lot of good. And then we have to prepare for a borderless world where somebody can be in Australia and be doing business in Nigeria without ever visiting Nigeria, you can be in Nigeria and be making all your money from people in Egypt, from people in Canada. It is how do we use the crisis, turn the crisis into an opportunity. On this note, we bring this program to an end, and may God bless you, and may God help our young people. May God help us to invest in our teeming population of young people so that they will champion the cause of turning what would have been a major crisis into opportunities for the betterment of our society. God bless you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Father.
Yeah.